Hello YouTube, Marielle here. I was thinking not so long ago about, I suppose I have been thinking about it for a while now, and this is about how my covert, passive-aggressive husband, to whom I really prefer to refer to him as Wolf, how he has managed to infiltrate my mind in such a way, maybe I should say corrupted my mind, whichever way it is. It's amazing how he has managed to switch my reality or flipped everything. No, he has managed to make me think that I am the one who is provoking his actions, his reactions, and his decisions. It's so masterful, because my mind, in trying to piece everything together, connect the dots, and make sense of everything, it always comes back to myself. Somehow it comes back to myself. He did such a thing, but actually I did do that, and that's why I did that. So maybe if I didn't do that, he wouldn't have done that. If you follow what I'm saying. But the truth of the matter is, with everything that I've been able to understand, the little that I've been able to digest and make sense of, it's very obvious that this again is another one of their tactics. This is something they're very, very good at. And one of the backdoor entry into this kind of way of flipping reality, or to shift the blame, or to project, or to pass on the problem onto the shoulder of the target. I think it's due to the fact that, again, what I'm dealing with and who I'm dealing with at this point, it has been a complete and total covert passive aggressive. I don't have he's not violent physically or verbally or openly in any way, shape or form. Not at all, at least until now. There's been a few things that have been a little bit, slightly over the edge, but never, right there in your face. So my experience is with somebody like that. But we all know that whether they're covert, whether they're overt abusers, whether they have a different type of NPDs, or whether they're on a different spectrum of all of this cluster B personality, I think they call it, the end results for the victim or the target always ends up being the same, and one of them being you end up blaming yourself, thinking that you are responsible for creating that environment, for being the fire starter almost of this craziness. And we all end up taking on that responsibility and feeling the weight of the whole situation. And sometimes even when it's very obvious that, it's very blatant that you have nothing to do with it. Yes, taking on the blame and thinking that there is something potentially wrong with you is almost unavoidable, and very difficult to get out from under of. And I think one of the way they do it, especially mine, is by copycatting, doing a copycat, enmeshing. I think the term is enmeshing, basically aligning themselves to you. Yeah, by the way, yeah, I went and I got my nails done finally. And by aligning themselves to you, and by testing boundaries, constantly testing boundaries to know how far they can push, how far they can go, how far, in that during, and they do that during that period where it's all about elevating you, making you feel special, making you feel good, and and that's when they test and they test and they poke and they poke and see, where your boundaries are. Because at that point, it's about studying you, not scaring you. So it's a dance. They follow your steps. They follow you. They follow you around. It's like pretty much just like being an understudy. And with that comes their ability to, that's when they look very carefully at what you do and what could potentially be perceived as a mistake. So they take that on, and then when the time's going to be right, they are going to reproduce that. They are going to reproduce that mistake. But in such a way, they are going to reproduce what you did way back then. But it's going to be done in such a way that you're not going to be able to confront them really properly. You're going to feel guilty because you're going to recognize that you did something similar. And therefore, you can't really complain that much, can you? And then over time, you start feeling like you feel guilty and you feel responsible, and you wonder, why on earth did I, if I did, I'm pretty sure that if I didn't do that, then you wouldn't have done that. That's where you find yourself in that situation. I do have several examples I could give you. Let me think of one, for instance. With my wolf, there's never been any decent communication whenever there's been a problem, whenever we had a problem. It was always a one-street communication. It was always a one-street conversation. It was me saying, well, this is what's happening, and I think we should do this because if we don't do this, well, this is what could happen. So really, if we do this, I think it'll be better for us. And you'll just stare at me and you'll say nothing, absolutely nothing. And over time, what happened is that I automatically stopped telling him stuff. I automatically stopped telling him stuff. It's a case of, if something needed to be done, eventually over time I realized that he wasn't interested, or I was thinking he wasn't interested, and I was thinking that he couldn't comprehend or he couldn't identify. So that was something he just wasn't up to, so I might as well just leave him. And since it's not that big of a deal, I've got 2 hands, I've got 2 feet, I've got a brain, and I've got the credit card, let me just go and sort it. But then what would happen, eventually with time, what happened is that then whenever there was a problem, he'll come to me and say, well, I didn't know about it. Well, you never discussed it with me. Well, you never asked for any help. So if you didn't ask for any help, how was I supposed to know? That was one of his covers. Or then he'll do exactly the same. He'll go and purchase something, or he'll go and do something. And then if I said, well, you never told me, he said, well, you do all those things all the time. You never tell me. You never ask for my advice. You just go and you do it. And suddenly my mouth will just be, zip, because it's true. And to anybody who doesn't understand the dynamic of the problem, it's easy for them to come and say, well, he's right. What you complaining about then, huh? But it's not that black and white. And also you have to understand, what I understand now is actually I was groomed into that situation. It wasn't, the fact that he never answered, never gave his opinion, never participated, that was him grooming me to take on the responsibility and leave him alone. That was him manipulating me into that situation for me to make that mistake, because it is a mistake. But he was grooming me into making that mistake, so he would provide himself a doorway for him to act that way. And the difference is me, when I did take on those decisions, I didn't take those decisions to benefit myself. It was for the good of our family. The house needed repairs, for instance, and things I needed to do with the children, and I couldn't just beg and beg and beg and wait. Whereas him, when he takes a decision to go and do something, always and automatically at the back of it, it's always at the detriment of our family, and most especially for the children. Guarantee every single time. But at the moment when he's actually throwing it back at me, especially at the time, I was just floored, and I really felt like I had no comeback. I couldn't defend myself, because what he was saying was based on a truth, a twisted truth, a twisted reality, but still based on something that I did. So this is what I'm saying, that with those covert passive-aggressive like mine, they have a way of, it's almost as if he does nothing. He's so passive. It completely blends in the background, and he's just an observer. And he catalogs everything. Your reactions, your decision-making skills, what you like, what you don't like, what makes you go, lose your mind, or whatever it is. And then, and even your mistakes as the relationship progresses. And then when he's good and ready, he grooms you and manipulates you into doing certain things that you have absolutely no choice. He leaves you with no choice, and you're thinking you're actually sparing him, or you're actually being nice to him, and you're actually thinking that you're giving him space, you're respecting him, and you're being a good wife, when in fact everything that you do in that moment is going to be used against you later, literally. And there is also another thing that my husband has done with me right from the beginning. And again, this is another technique, or another tactic, I would say, to groom you into to, it's just another way to groom you into accepting their very, very bad behavior and putting you on a defense and testing you. Now I'm realizing that right from the beginning, my beloved, my wolf, was testing me right from the get-go, really from the moment we started. Throughout the love, that extreme love bombing stage at the beginning, not long after that, he started by messing with my mind, by not even saying, you see, this is so tricky, because he never even, yes, he did tell me he loved me, but that was much later after. But right at the beginning, and also because of the language barrier, I don't remember him telling me all the time that he loved me. But obviously because of that intense attention I was getting, and everything he was doing with me and for me, led me to know without a shadow of a doubt that that man loved me. So he didn't even have to say it. But not long after, he started by pushing back, by telling me constantly, no, you don't love me. Oh, no, you don't love me. You're so good, I don't deserve you. You're so good, you're so smart, you're so pretty. You're so much better than I am. I don't deserve you. I know you can't possibly love me as much as I love you. You don't love me as much as I love you. And every now and then we'll say, if it did happen, and we'll say, I'll say I love you. Or no, I would say I love you. And he'll always said to me constantly, not as much as I love you. Constantly. And this is something that doesn't sound like much, but in a context of what has happened over the years, it's definitely a technique, a passive-aggressive move to start messing with your mind and pushing the boundaries and breaking down your wall, just slowly scraping away at that wall around you and getting through to you, getting through to eat away at you. Most definitely. And this was one of the very, very definitely was one of the first attack in my psyche and in my heart, because I was only 19 when I met him, and I didn't even really fall in love with him head over heel, because I still had a crush. I had a sweetheart crush, when I met him. But he was so nice to me. He slowly just opened up my heart, and with everything, he really, really, everything he did just completely opened up my heart to him. And what sealed the deal with me was that he did not push me to have sex with him when we met, because he did ask, and I looked at him and I thought, who do you think I am? That was my that was what I thought, and I'm not so sure whether I said that to him, but basically I was like, you're knocking at the wrong door here. But yeah, and when he respected that boundary, and I firmly put that in place, and he respected that, that's how he won me. That's how my wolf won me, because he would have pushed it. it would have been a deal breaker for me, because I knew I just wasn't going to go there. I wasn't ready to go there. I didn't want to go there. I wasn't interested in going there. And when he respected that boundary, he got me, and he knew it. And he knew it. And that was probably the first boundary that he scratched at. And then the second one was pushing, constantly telling me, putting me on the defensive, and making it so that I would feel like I had to prove my love to him. That's when I started working, and didn't know it, but that's when I started to work and work and work to prove myself to him. And I was so young, and I was, by the time I really fell for him, I was lost to know how to find a way to prove to him how much I loved him, how much he was important to me, and how much he meant to me. I was lost. I had nothing. You know, I didn't have money. I didn't have anything, and I just could not find something to prove to him that, listen, you know, you're here, you matter. You know, I had nothing to prove. I had nothing. But there was one thing that I had, and that was my body. That was my body. And what ended up happening slowly is that sexually, I ended up, those boundaries broke eventually in a way that if I didn't let, you know, it's just like when you're 15 and you're 16 and you're 13 and you're starting to date and have boyfriends, and then they manipulate you. Well, if you love me, if you love me, then, you know, you're gonna have to kiss me. And then it goes, well, if you love me, well, you're gonna have to have sex with me, because, you know, prove it. It's that same kind of thing. But in that situation, you know, in that next level, the next degree of thing, it's a case of, you know, if he was a little bit rough, or if he was, you know, if there was those, it was a little bit too demanding, or it was a little bit too often, or, you know, I just didn't I no longer had that space where I could stand on to say, no, slow down a bit, mate, you know, give me some space, and no, this is a little bit too much for me. You know, I had that internal struggle where I just had no place to stand, because I was already on the defensive, and I was already put into that space where I had to prove. And he had won. And that must have been a major victory for him, because it meant that right there and then he knew he had me. And that's probably when that's probably when he knew, you know, he got me. And he went on from there. So the whole point of this video is that, you know, for covert passive-aggressive abuser like mine, they are seducers. They seduce you, and they always find a way to get to you, and they're gonna sharpen their tools so that it matches who you are, until he finds, you know, they find that crack that just matches just you. They're gonna tailor their techniques to you. If you are a person with a bit of a temper, or a very smart, quick attitude, they'll tailor that to you. If you are somebody who does things, or you have even if you have very strong boundaries, they'll match it to you. They will match. They're very good at what they do. And not only will they match it to you, but as well, they are going to find a way to do it in such a way that you will feel responsible. You won't be able at first to identify them. You're going to feel responsible. You're going to feel like it's your fault. You're going to wonder and ask yourself, if I didn't do that, will he have behaved like that? And the answer is yes. The answer is yes.